Well, that is a satisfying sound. Ladies, gentlemen, and rogues of all ages, Diablo 4 Season 3 is literally right around the corner, mere hours away from the release at the time of this going up. And with such a shift to a large number of things for Rogue as a class within the patch, those of you who are planning to play Rogue this season may be wondering how much it has changed as far as your actual start and beginning to your journey. And, well, the answer is actually quite a lot, as this time around the top leveling build for Rogue is expected to be Penetrating Shot, taking advantage mostly of the major changes to Precision as a key passive, making it really genuinely quite good now, especially in tandem with combo points to let you actually line up the procs of Precision on combo point boosted penetrating shots, and it just looks like it's going to be a beautiful synergy that you can access early enough to entirely prepare around it as your leveling build. That said, we will talk about all the skill points we're using, where we're putting them, and when, and we'll go over our specialization in a bit more detail too. We'll talk about our legendary aspects for this build, of which we are only going to be covering 3, as this is a leveling build and you can put aspects on your jewelry and get away with just not switching them out for long periods of time. And of course, those aspects will also be grabbable from the Codex of Power specifically, so you can have them guaranteed within an hour or so of the season starting if you want to, no RNG required at all. Then we'll just talk about the new mechanic as part of the season, the Seneschal Companion, and just how that will actually work into the build and how we can make it synergize around us and our build specifically. Starting off then with the skill points themselves, for our basic skill we are of course going to be taking Puncture and then also Enhanced Puncture, then we're going to be skipping over to grab Penetrating Shot in the core skill node, so that we have our core skill as quickly as possible. Then you want to round back and actually grab Fundamental Puncture specifically, which is sort of the main purpose of this basic skill, as this enhancement makes it a 3-blade spread, where if 2 of the blades hit the same target, it will apply Vulnerable, which is massive to have a reliable source of early on. Then we want to go and grab Enhanced Penetrating Shot as well, which will actually be changed in this patch 1.3 to instead be a crit chance boost, as well as boosting the crit chance of our character in general, basically like this, if Penetrating Shot hits 3 or more enemies. Then we're also going to be taking Advanced Penetrating Shot, which makes it also apply slow to any enemy hit, on top of if it hits an elite, it will also knock them down, which makes for a really cool synergy you'll see in a few moments. After that, we just completely fill out the ranks on Penetrating Shot itself, make it as beefy as you possibly can. Then we're going to be moving on to the next cluster and putting 1 point into Dash with none of its enhancements. Dash has 2 purposes in this build. The first is movement and traversal speed in general, helping you avoid big attacks or even just literally moving faster, which will boost your leveling speed as a result. But it is also excellent at applying Shadow Imbuement to large groups of enemies as well. Then we're going to be grabbing Dark Shroud here as our only defensive skill in the build, but it does do quite a lot of good for us. Then we're going to be grabbing Enhanced Dark Shroud as well to have a chance to not have a shadow consumed, and then Subverting Dark Shroud, which makes this also give us movement speed per act Shadow 2, again making this incredible for just generally making your experience faster as a whole. After that, we want to round back to the previous cluster and grab all 3 ranks of the Concussive passive. This gives you 12% critical chance for 4 seconds after knocking an enemy back or down, and our Penetrating Shot now knocks down elites when cast at full energy. So this is just plus 12% crit chance when you're around elites, which is of course pretty damn solid. Then we move down and we're going to be grabbing Shadow Imbuement as well as its enhancement here, and also we're going to be taking Blended Shadow Imbuement, which makes enemies vulnerable after you hit them with this. And generally speaking, Shadow Imbuement's main purpose in this build is for AoE. You want to apply it into as many enemies as possible, and then if you kill even one of them, it will just sort of burst through the whole thing like a line of dominoes. You can apply this through either Penetrating Shot itself or through Dash, because it's mostly the debuff that causes the damage. It's not really based off of the skill that you use it on. Then we're also going to be taking Poison Imbuement here, which is largely for single target damage above all else, but still useful in AoE if Shadow Imbuement is on cooldown. And we're also going to be taking Enhanced Poison Imbuement for a slightly longer duration on it, and then Mixed Poison Imbuement, which is going to be a different actual effect within this patch again. It's getting a change, replacing the old effect with a chance to lower the cooldown of Poison Imbuement itself, which is going to be quite fun to actually mess around with. Obviously, the gameplay that you've seen on screen in this is the current season, the current patch, so it does not reflect changes like this that will be happening when the season hits. I'm just trying to recreate it conceptually as best as possible to show you something at least somewhat relevant in the background. After that, we're going to be grabbing 1 rank of Shadow Crash as a passive, as mostly just a gateway to get 1 rank of Consuming Shadows, which makes enemies killed by shadow damage grant you energy. Then we round back to grab 3 ranks of Exploit for bonus damage to both healthy and injured enemies, then 3 ranks of Malice for bonus damage against vulnerable enemies too, which should be pretty much all of our enemies all the time. Then we're going to be taking 2 ranks of the Precision Imbuement passive here, which will then unlock the key passive here, and of course, this time we're going to be going with Precision, which is just, again, the biggest major change making this build more effective for leveling this season, with the new effect being that Marksman skill casts will grant 1 stack of Precision, 2 if they crit. When you're at 6 stacks, your next Marksman core or ultimate skill is guaranteed to crit and does 50% increased critical damage, resetting the stacks. The damage is boosted further by a percentage of your crit damage bonus, so it's just way better than how it was before, and because of how it works here, you can directly synergize it with combo points to guaranteed proc it on full combo point penetrating shot. It won't trigger on any of our other skills in this build other than penetrating shot, and if you start to get your crit chance rolling, then the stacks will line up with combo points perfectly. After that, we round back up and grab that last rank of Precision Imbuement here just to fill that out. Then we put the remaining points that we need to into Poison Imbuement to just fill that up completely, get that to its actual maximum damage, just make it actually stronger. Then we're going to be going over to Dark Shroud here and also increasing that to 5 out of 5, this time for, of course, the damage reduction that gives us. Then we're going to be back even further, picking up all 3 ranks of the Weapon Mastery passive, which is especially good with this type of build, boosting our crit strike damage with crossbows by 15%, and a crossbow is what you want to use for sure, which even double dips a bit for us, so it's really just incredible. Then we just have a few more passives down in the ultimate section here. 1 rank of Adrenaline Rush, mostly as a gateway to get 3 ranks of Haste for bonus movement speed while above 50% energy, and bonus attack speed when below 50%, as well as 3 ranks of Impetus for a damage boost to our next non-basic skill after moving 12 meters. Essentially, you can purposefully trigger this with the Precision Stacks combo point penetrating shot combo for an even larger burst on demand with this on top of it. And this is just going to nuke things when you actually get it off. It's going to be absolutely lovely. Then for our last few little points here, we're going to be taking 3 ranks of the Innervation passive for a 30% lucky hit chance to gain 8 energy, and 2 ranks of Alchemist Fortune, which just gives you a slightly increased lucky hit chance from non-physical damage, which means our imbuement applied skills, basically. With that then covered, let's go over our specialization, which obviously we've been talking about it a lot, and it is in fact combo points, but the main reason why is that everything lines up well as we've gone over. But what I've yet to mention is as you level higher and higher and get more control over your stats in the build, to the point where your critical hit chance is genuinely high, if you crit every time that you use Puncture, then you literally get full precision stacks in 3 hits, full combo points in those same 3 hits, then fire Penetrating Shot. If you have those crits happen, then that just gives you a beautiful, lovely rhythm of perfectly buffed shots extremely frequently that will get absolutely nasty as you build it up. So this is a fantastic leveling build, but also a good way to transfer into what is looking to be an incredibly strong contender for the new best rogue build at higher levels as well. Past that then, let's talk about your legendary aspects. As mentioned earlier, we're going to be specifically going over 3 specifically for your jewelry slots, and specifically ones that are available in the Codex of Power so you can intentionally unlock them early. For your amulet and the 50% power boost that things get from being in that slot, we are going for the Trick Shot aspect, which makes Penetrating Shot fire out 2 bonus arrows at perpendicular angles to the original shot whenever it connects with an enemy, turning this from a straight line penetrating damage skill into something that is properly AoE. These extra arrows in this amulet slot deal 15 to 38% of the original penetrating shot damage. Obviously the low roll in the Codex of 15% isn't crazy, but it's much better than the 10 would be in a different slot, and most importantly, this is for the application of your imbuements en masse, and is a large part of what creates those moments of screen wiping shadow imbuement pops. Then on one of your rings, you're going to want to have the aspect of the Expectant. Basic skills boost the damage of your next core. Quite simply, it fits perfectly into the rhythm of this build, focused on combo points and precision stacks. It builds up from the same concept and also boosts the thing that we are focusing on by putting the big damage on the core skill itself, so it's just a perfect fit. It's worth mentioning this actually doesn't boost the poison damage on a poison imbued skill, which is sad, but it still does enough power boosting in this build to be more than worth having. Then for our final legendary, in the other ring slot, you want actually the rapid aspect, which just boosts the attack rate of your basic skill. And obviously that's really good for us because, put simply, the faster you fire at your basic skill, the more often you can do the penetrating shot nuke with full combo points or even precision stacks, which is the majority of your damage. So by increasing the frequency of use, you increase your overall damage a very notable amount. Then we have our big new mechanic for the season itself, which is the Seneschal Construct Companion, and how we want to boost it up with the Governing Stone skills and Tuning Stone augments. Obviously this is subject to a bit of change as we don't know how hard or easy each of these stones will be to get really outside of a couple of them, but this is what I expect to be available relatively early while also synergizing extremely well with what we're doing. First up for Governing Stones, we're going with Flash of Adrenaline. This is a damage boost for the player themselves, worth noting that the damage of the construct scales with player stats completely, so boosting our damage also boosts its own damage, which is pretty cool too. It's sort of double dipping. And for the tuning stones on this, we are going with Safeguard support, which gives us a damage reduction buff as well, duration support to increase the duration of the buff, and tactical support to reduce its cooldown on top of that that as well. Then for the second Governing Stone, we are going with Lightning Bolt for a bouncing multi-hit ranged attack, and for the Tuning Stones, we are going with Efficiency Support for a boost to our crit chance against any enemy hit by the Lightning Bolt, Gripping Support, which makes any distant enemy hit by the Lightning Bolt be pulled in on top of the construct, making it really nice utility for us, and letting us have an active pulling effect and grouping up enemies as well. Then Multi-Shot Support, which makes the attack hit more enemies, thus boosting both the crit chance increase application and the pulling effect that we have attached to it as well. Altogether, this should be a pretty significant boost to our clear speed and just general power by existing, but also because Rogue is pretty heavily stat-based as a class, the construct itself should be pretty beefy alongside us because it scales with us. That does it then for how to put everything together, so let's quickly go over how to play really. Puncture is for applying vulnerable quickly and also for using when at low energy. Shadow Imbuement is mostly just for applying the debuff itself, which means you can apply it through Penetrating Shot or even just through using Dash through a big group of enemies. Poison Imbuement you want to use specifically with Penetrating Shot, as its main purpose is with Shadow Imbuement being more for AoE and Poison being more for single target, but both still worth using even in their less ideal situations, don't get it wrong. Then we have Penetrating Shot. Of course, ideally you want to cast this with full precision stacks and full combo points, with Impetus active and with an Imbuement on as well, but you cannot force all those things to line up every time, so essentially the way you want to think about it is use Penetrating Shot anytime that you have 3 combo points. If the other things line up correctly, then it's perfect. If they don't, it's still a waste to not fire it off, so focus on combo points above all else to know when to fire off a Penetrating Shot. And that just about does it for today then, everyone. The strongest rogue leveling build in Season 3, built off of changes being made in patch 1.3 itself, and of course a knowledge of what has been historically working on Rogue before these changes are applied too. I hope you enjoy this build if you try it out for yourself, and I wish you the best of luck in getting up to World Tier 3 and even beyond using this playstyle too. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.